the financial secretary and also the PS will give us a briefing. Thank you, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for taking time to attend this press briefing on the details of the consumption voucher scheme. About a week ago, or so ago, I announced the latest budget, and we announced that $10,000 worth of consumption voucher will be issued to members. Now, I'd like to talk about the first round of the scheme. In the first phase, we're going to disperse $5,000 to members of the public successfully registered under the previous scheme, and you'll be able to receive $5,000 in the next month. And Ms. Wong is going to give you details of arrangements. I'd like to explain to the public some of the rationale behind the whole framework so that you can have a better grasp of the whole arrangements. During the months when I drafted the budget, now, in late last year, the market was booming, and then in the beginning of this year, the fifth wave started. And so we assumed that the situation would continue to worsen, and that's the assumption behind our budget. So we have greatly boosted measures in the budget to help the community. We will enhance support for SMEs and members of the public. We are going to introduce $10,000 worth of consumption voucher, and also introduce the rent enforcement moratorium. We planned to launch the consumption voucher scheme during the summer vacation, but taking into account the hardship faced by the community, I've decided to advance the first installment to April. A lot of coordination work is involved before this can be done. Although details of registrants are still with us, but then we have to update the computer system before we can ensure that the 6 million odd people in Hong Kong can automatically receive the voucher without further procedures. But of course, some members of the public might have lost their card, or their store value facility is no longer valid. They have to make some adjustment. But then the design of this scheme is to ensure that people who are still using their old Octopus card and store value facility can very simply receive the first phase disbursement of the voucher. I will now give the floor to Ms. Wong to brief you on the latest scheme. Thank you. Under the new consumption voucher scheme, we are going to disperse each eligible Hong Kong permanent resident and new arrivals aged 18 above consumption voucher equivalent to $5,000 to $10,000 per installment. Now, for phase one, we will disperse $5,000 to persons successfully registered under the previous scheme. And in the second phase, and then the remaining amount will be dispersed to eligible members when things are ready. And then eligible persons in phase one will receive $5,000 worth of voucher, and newly eligible registrants will be given 10,000 vouchers by installment. So we're going to benefit 6.3 million people, as stressed by the financial secretary. If the store value facility accounts for receiving the last round of consumption voucher are still valid, then they don't have to do anything. There is no need to make any application or do anything. So the arrangement will be like when they received a second installment last year. Automatically, the money will go into the account. So they it's just like that. They have an extra or another installment of the voucher. But then some members of the public might have canceled their old store value facility, or they might have returned or lost their registered Octopus card, and the registrant will not be able to receive the voucher. So within a specified period, they will have to update their registration record on store value facility account using the same store value facility. Now in phase 1, we allowed people to update their registration account on the basis that they have lost or returned their registered Octopus cards. Last time we had given you 3 store value facilities to choose from. Now, if you have used facility A now, because that account is now invalid, you have to still register with the same facility for the new installment. Well, you may say that I don't know whether my old account is no longer valid. You can do the following. Now, for electronic wallet, even if you haven't used it for a long time, the account is still valid. Most people can approach the operator of the store value facility used for hotlines or telephone numbers. You can go to our consumption voucher scheme website, and you can confirm with the operator whether your facility or your account is valid. And some may have a few Octopus cards and you've forgotten which card has been registered under the scheme. So do you have to change or update the account? Well, you just call the Octopus card hotline. You provide the number of your card, and then the hotline will confirm whether you have registered using that card. Or you can click on to the website of Octopus card or use the app. So you just input your card number, and then you can confirm whether the card has been registered. So you have to confirm whether your account is still valid. If it is, then you don't have to do anything. You'll be able to receive the first installment. For the methods of issuing or receiving usage and coverage of the consumption voucher, they are just the same as that of the 2021 scheme. So you just go to the website for details. Disbursement timetable is in April. Well, depending on the latest development of the epidemic and related arrangements, we will announce the exact disbursement data later. Now, through Alipay Hong Kong, Tap and Go, and WeChat Pay Hong Kong, now if you are using these store value facilities, you'll be able to receive $5,000 in one go in April. And expiry date is a bit longer than what it was last year. It will be on the 31st of October this year. Now, if you're using Octopus to receive the voucher, then same as last year, you're going to receive the money in 2 phases. The first $4,000 will be disbursed on a date in April, similar as the arrangement for the other 3 store value facilities. And for the second voucher, equivalent to $1,000. Now, when you have cumulatively spend $4,000, then the second voucher of $1,000 will be disbursed on the 16th in the following month. So once you have reached the eligible spending amount, you'll be able to receive the remaining $1,000 on the 16th day in the following month. For details, you can visit our website. As said, we will give out the first installment in April worth $4,000. So long as you spend cumulatively $4,000, then the soonest for you to receive the remaining $1,000 is on the 16th of June. And then, so long as you've spent $4,000 by the 31st of October, you'll be able to get the last $1,000 by the 16th of November 2022.
We will provide sufficient flexibility, and the members of the public would have regard to their own situation, depending on the COVID situation. You spend the money faster, then you will get the remainder of $10,000. But the deadline would be the 16th of November 2022. There will be sufficient flexibility, because we heard that some registrants were worried about going past the deadline without spending all the money. So there would be a sufficient length of time and sufficient flexibility for the registrants. As we said, some members of the public have already got the account, the account has become invalid, or they have already lost the Octopus card. So starting from about 2 p.m. today through to the 25th of March, the members of the public can go through certain simple procedures to update their SVF account information. Now, all they need to do is to download the application form, or they can call the hotline 185 or they can use fax or mail to collect the application form. Once the form is filled in, it can be mailed to the GPO box. That's GPO box 185,000. There is no postage required. As long as this is mailed back with a copy of ID card, we will process it from there. Now, for Octopus card users, there are some who lost their Octopus cards, so we do have an online system for people to update their record using another Octopus card to collect the first installment of the voucher. You can get the link from the web. Again, all you need to do is to fill in simple information. There is no need to upload the ID card copy. All we need is a registration reference number. I'm sure you must have received the text. It would not be difficult to get the information. Once they've registered, they would get this SMS, as long as they get hold of the information from the mobile phone. Now, the designated phone number is 60591120, and some may say that they've already erased all the information. They haven't got the registration reference number. It doesn't matter. All you need to do is to call the hotline 185,000, and the registration reference number will be released back to the registered phone number. If the Octopus card has been lost or returned, they can use these means to register another Octopus card to collect the installment. Over the past couple of months, we've seen an application for Joy You card, and the cardholder may have returned the original Octopus card to the MTRC. That would be simpler for these people. We've made a special arrangement with the Octopus company. If people have the Joy You card and the registered Octopus card has been cancelled, and they want to collect the voucher using this Joy You card, all they need to do is to call this hotline 29695500 of the Octopus Card Limited, and they don't need to fill out any form at all. There may be some people who might need assistance despite the simple procedures, and they can call our hotline, or we do have the information posted online. There may be indeed some people who need some assistance. Starting from this afternoon at Mong Kok Tin Shui and Wan Chai, we have 3 service centers. Now, because of COVID, people will need to seek assistance by appointment. These centers, we do have our own staff as well as the Octopus staff there on hand to render assistance. So from this afternoon onwards, they can call the hotline 185,000 and they can make an appointment and turn up at the service center to get assistance. Now it is Monday to Friday, Monday to 9 to 6, and Saturday 9 to 1. But because of COVID, the opening hours might be susceptible to changes. And we hope that members of the public would resort to mailing or the online service. And if they encounter any difficulties, they can call the hotline or the Octopus hotline to seek assistance. That's for phase 1. As regards phase 2, like we said, for those who have collected 5,000 in the first phase, they will be dispersed the other 5,000 in the second phase for new eligible registrants, and they will be dispersed by with $10,000 vouchers by installment. In the second phase, in the first phase rather, we do not allow any changes to the SVF account. But for the second phase, we will open this up, and depending on their wishes and the needs, the members of the public can make their own choices. And we will be making the announcement about the SVF that will be taking part, and people can pick and choose their own desired SVF accounts. We are making a preparation now. All details will be announced in due course. As I said, all the information has been posted on the web. All the procedures will be accessible clearly online. If anything, people are welcome to call the hotline 185000. Thank you, Jesse. And this PowerPoint will be emailed to you. Any questions there? Please raise your hands if you want to put questions, and also identify the organization you represent. Lady in white. Now TV. Mr. Financial Secretary, you mentioned that the fifth wave is very, very serious. Are you going to be relaxing the usage other than making purchases? Can people use the money to pay rent and the electricity and water tariff? Is it possible for this to be further relaxed? Why not any flexibility? Also, the change of platform. You allow people who lost their Octopus card only for the first phase, and people can only change their SVF platform for the second phase. Are you worried that with 6 million people involved, the system may not be able to cope or what? Furthermore, because of COVID situation, you encourage people to call the hotline to deal with their own problems. The government has a lot of hotlines, and that they're always engaged. That one will never be able to get through. What is the manpower available to man the hotlines? You have 3 service centers, and what is the manpower like to man the centers? And how much manpower are you going to have for the hotlines? Thank you. This wave of COVID is raging really relentlessly. The scope of the consumption voucher scheme is very broad, and one can buy the anti-pandemic supplies, buy groceries, transportation, and daily necessities, and so on. These are all applicable. We'd like to launch these as soon as possible. We don't really want to see any inconvenience arising from the change of the system. We don't really want to delay the disbursement. So in terms of scope, we're not going to have any further relaxation for the time being.
Now, if members of the public spend money using the consumption voucher, then they can save money for paying public utilities and rent. Now, for people who have lost their cards or swift to another facility, we will talk about 20,000 odd number. Ms. Wong can elaborate. Now, last year, 6.38 million people have successfully registered. Most of them don't have to do anything to receive the money now, given the gravity of the epidemic. Now, if you have not lost your card or closed your account, then you don't have to do anything. We will be responsible for the system interface and other logistics, and that's okay. So, if for reasons such as loss of the card, a registrant would like to update their record, then they can do so by mail, so as to reduce the need to go out. The people concerned will be small in number, and so we believe 3 help centers will be sufficient. Now, according to information by operators of SVF, now for those who have cancelled their electronic wallet for receiving the voucher, the total number is around 1,000. And the Octopus has received 57,000 cards returned, and among them, 17,000 have now used JoyU card. So this 17,000 account holders who are now using the JoyU card, they need only to call the hotline of Octopus, and so they don't have to update their information by mail or in person. So usually they might have people have lost their card. Still, I believe over 99% of the population need not do anything. So the account or the registrants we have to deal with will be very small in number. This gentleman in suit. Good morning. I'm from Phoenix TV. Oh, there is a shortage of supplies in the market, and so even if you have launched the card, will you envisage that some operators will hike prices? And last year, there was some obstruction in payment because of traffic flow. Would you anticipate the same? And can you give us an idea what new SVFs will be added? Not long ago, because some outlets may have the staff infected or under quarantine, and refilling the shelves and replenishing the stock were a bit of a problem. So that created some inconvenience. After last year's experience with the consumption voucher scheme, some academics said that the scheme was only very minimum in terms of jacking up prices. This year, the epidemic is very serious. I appeal to the public to help one another, and I hope they will make better arrangements for the benefit of the public. And as for new SVFs, Ms. Wong is now approaching different SVFs operators. Perhaps she can give us an update. For phase 2, we have started our work similar to that of last year through the Hong Kong Monetary Authority. We've approached or we have given briefings to SVF operators we deem appropriate. We've invited views from them and taking into account a number of factors, including the popularity and user-friendliness and coverage of the SVF concerned, or whether it has a related experience and the lead time for preparation. We will choose the right SVF. We hope that we can identify new SVF to promote beneficial competition. and to provide more choices. Because of competition, last year, SVFs and also shops were willing to provide different discounts or benefits for consumers. And this scheme will also promote the development of electronic payment system. So it will be helpful if we have more SVF, but we have just started our preparation. When that is ready, we'll announce the details. Now, some reporters were worried that last year there was a blockage in traffic. Now, after announcement by the FS, we have approached the 4 SVFs to make preparation. Last year, when the first installment was disbursed in August, yes, some individual SVFs had some hiccups. By the time we disbursed the second installment in October, things were rather smooth. This time, we will not have different batches. All 6.3 million people will receive the disbursement on the same day. Well, last year, all the vouchers have been dispersed, so the system has expired, and so the operators will have to update and test the system. After testing is completed, we will disperse the first installment in April. Well, we have been urging the operators in last August, the first installment had some hiccups, and we have been monitoring and urging the operators to do better. This lady in a beige shirt, jacket. Speaker is off mic. Let's have another microphone.
So firstly, because there are so many shops who may have suspended operations or closed down, is there any way to push forward the distribution since the mechanisms are already in place? And can you give like maybe an indication of whether it will be early April, late April? Like, is there an exact date where we can receive the vouchers? And secondly, there are people who have migrated but they have previously registered. Is there any way to find out how many of these people have migrated and what will happen to the unused vouchers? And is there any way to efficiently distribute it? And are there any alternatives for people who want to receive cash? Thank you.
Well, as you rightly point out, because of the epidemic situation, many of the shops' operations have been interrupted. And that also applies to the other stakeholders and operators involved in this particular consumption voucher project. That's why, to be prudent at this stage, we refrain from giving a specific day as to when this first batch of consumption voucher will be made. But our consideration is to do it as early as practically possible. But it really depends on the circumstances. From our standpoint, whatever we can do, we will do our best. But in order to enable the entire over 6.3 million citizens can receive this voucher smoothly without any hiccup, I think it is very important for us to do sufficient back-end work, have the system properly tested to ensure the experience of the users will end up to be very good. Since this voucher will be made available in April and the scope of usage is pretty wide-ranging, we think switching into another mode by paying cash would take a lot more time and a lot more administrative procedures, and would also involve the entire population probably would need to do another round of registration again, at least by providing us with their bank account numbers. Given the epidemic situation, that is not advisable. So we think it would be best for us to stick to the electronic consumption voucher scheme. As to the possibility of people immigrated elsewhere, perhaps for this question, I can invite Jessie to share with you our work behind.
In fact, when we designed consumption vouchers scheme last year, we took into account this consideration. So we impose a residing in Hong Kong requirement. We require the registrants to indicate in the application whether they stay at least 1 day in Hong Kong in the past 2 years. Because in fact, we really don't have the definition of whether people has been immigrant. For example, even when a person left Hong Kong, we don't know when he or she will come back. So there's no definition of whether a person has been immigrant. So what we are trying to make sure that people receiving the vouchers are those who really stay in Hong Kong. So we impose the residing in Hong Kong requirement. And also we need to bear in mind that for consumption vouchers, they need to be spent in Hong Kong for the local merchants. So from the registration data, we find that, for example, for last year's consumption voucher scheme, according to the information of the Immigration Department, there should be about 7.2 million people who are eligible, apart from the residing in Hong Kong requirement, of course. It turned out that those successfully got the voucher is 6.3 million people. We'll find that some people may know that they do not fulfill our requirements, so they do not come forward to register. And also, some people may find that they can't use the voucher after they left Hong Kong, so they did not come forward to register. So we think that those measures are effective in certain extent to make sure that those who only those who stay or in Hong Kong or the Hong Kong resident will got the vouchers.
Yeah, thank you.
Lady in blue, TVB. Now for the first phase of disbursement, when in April is it going to be? We noticed that there are many premises that have been closed that will not be reopened until April the 20th. Will you be dispersing the voucher after the 20th to help these premises? If the premises were to be closed continuously, will there be any particular measure? Now, this phase may be valid until October, but from previous experience, people would be spending it all within a fortnight once they get a hand on the voucher. How best are you going to be helping these premises in difficulties? Now, Mr. Financial Secretary, you said that many people would go to the supermarket to buy their supplies, anti-pandemic supplies. How can you make sure that only the supermarkets or the pandemic supplies operators will benefit the most to the exclusion of others? Now, this first phase of voucher will make it convenient for the public of the 6.3 million who have successfully registered. 99% of them do not have to do a thing to get the consumption voucher. We have to do a lot of back-end work on a computer system to make sure that the whole thing is going to be operating smoothly and to give the users a good experience. So we do need some time for this. Now, we're also affected by the pandemic. As you are aware, there are different places where staff members come down with COVID, and that is detrimental to the operation. So at this point in time is not appropriate for us to pin down a specific date, because we are prone to the COVID onslaught. Now, there are two phases to this consumption voucher scheme. And for the first phase, and many people, because of COVID, are under quite a lot of stress and would like to disperse this as soon as possible. I would like to get this out sooner rather than later. But because of the uncertainties, we cannot pin down a particular date. But be that as it may, we'd like to get this out sometime in April. A lady with long hair. Cable TV. What is the eligible date of birth for this scheme? Now you're going to give 2 weeks for people to update the information. The post offices are closing their branches. Now, why don't you consider a longer period of time for people to update the information? We don't really want to see people queuing up around the block to update the information like last time. How many people do you expect who will have to update the information? Ms. Wong said that there may be some particular concessions for different platforms, that there are no choice. This time, are you going to ask the SVF platforms to offer some concessions to the public? Now, in the budget, you mentioned the moratorium on the rent enforcement. How far along is the progress? Is it likely that it's going to be aborted? Right, for this round of consumption voucher scheme, those 18 or above will be eligible. Where do we draw the line? By the time we announce the registration, we will be making the announcement as well. And we will also announce all the SVF operators, old and new. Now, for this April phase, we're not increasing the number of SVF platform. We don't allow people to change the platforms because we really want to disperse these voucher to the hands of the public as soon as possible. But during the pandemic, people are really stressful. We don't really want to encourage people to come out too much. So we are of the view that we would stick with the information that we got last time, and we disperse the funding without people doing anything at all. That would be best. We mentioned about tens of thousands of people who might have lost their Octopus card, or they may have switched over to Joy U card. That they can update the information online or by mail. The number is pretty minuscule in any case. They can fax, they can do it online, and we allowed a fortnight or so's time for people to fill out the information and mail it back for us to do the back-end work. So that under these circumstances, we would like to make it convenient to the public, and it would be more important for us to disperse the funding to them as soon as possible. I defer to Ms. Jessie Wong to talk about the number of people expected, and then I'll come back to you about the moratorium. Right, in terms of the SVF operators, now for the 3 e-wallets, the 3 taken together, about 1,000 or so, have cancelled their accounts. Octopus number is a little bit higher. There were 50,000 people who have already returned their registered Octopus card to the MTRC, and 17,000 of whom have already switched over to the Joy U cards. So for the Joy U card holders, if they want to collect the voucher using that card, all they need to do is to call the Octopus hotline to get it processed. I'd like to emphasize that 99% of the 6.3 successfully registered registrants, 99% of them don't have to do a thing at all, maybe 1% or about 10 thousands or tens of thousands of people who may need to update their information by mail or electronically. We should be able to handle this within a fortnight or so. And if the members of the public would like to mail the information in, and they're worried about the COVID, as long as they can send the information before the 25th, we will deal with it as soon as possible. And if we can deal with this on time, they don't have to be worried about anything at all, unless they have lost their octopus card.
之後咧，其實張八達通卡就
But actually, the octopus card is valuable after the disbursement of the vouchers. So I think people are quite careful about their cards. So only a very small number of cards have been lost. So if it is not a lost card, but it's just a card returned, now we cannot disperse the money to you if information has been updated. So we will update it for you later. So you only get the money later. But if the money is lost and picked up by somebody else, then your voucher will be used by somebody else. And a reporter asked how I can ensure that the 4 SVF operators will continue to provide concessions. Now, please bear in mind that we will have 2 installments. So in the first phase, we are still discussing with the operators. The current 4 SVF operators might not be included in phase 2. So I believe in phase 1, they will be very eager to do things well. And even if they're included, they may have to compete with new operators. Even if there isn't any, they'll have to compete among themselves. So in phase 2, we allow people to switch their SVF. So there is sufficient incentive for SVF operators to provide proper services together with some concessions. And of course, depending on the situation, these SVF operators will provide concessions to both shops and users. Now, for the eligibility criteria, it's just the same: Hong Kong permanent residents or new arrivals 18 or above, but then the eligibility date will be announced later. So there will be more people who are 18 or above eligible. Based on information from Immigration Department, we believe there will be about 6.6 million people able to benefit. As for the rent enforcement moratorium, last week I discussed with the Hong Kong Banking Association as well as REDA, Real Estate Development Association, and few chambers of commerce, and also associations in the food and beverage and retail sectors, etc. We exchanged views, and online I met with legislators of different sectors. There were 3 rounds of exchange sessions. This afternoon, I'm going to consult the CI panel, Commerce and Industry panel of the Council. Last 2 questions. So please focus on the consumption voucher scheme. The gentleman in yellow, Hong Kong 01. I have got 2 questions. I'd like to know the administrative expenses of the government in phase 1 will be much higher than the last scheme. And this scheme will straddle 2 governments. So is it a must, or is there any certainty that phase 2 will be dispersed, and will 2 phases be carried out within this year? Now the epidemic is still raging. Are you confident that even when the first phase is dispersed in April, the epidemic is well under control and shops can operate again and people can spend the money? Now, if the scheduled premises are still closed, and the social distancing measures are very tight. So will disbursement of the money in phase one encourage people to come out together, or else they won't be able to spend the money? And secondly, for people who have emigrated or left Hong Kong for a long time, they should not be eligible. So what is the government's position for those who have emigrated? Do you think they should be eligible to receive the money now if they are users of the 4 SFS? Well, when this scheme was launched last year in the budget, we played safe. We reserve $600 million for administration, but in fact, we only spent $250 million. And the administrative cost is very similar to the cash handout scheme. And then the SVF operators either lower the commission fees for the shops, or they provide discounts or concessions to members of the public. So although FS, we consider whether the administrative costs for the scheme would be higher than that for cash handout scheme, but in reality, the cost is very much the same. Now, there will always be different terms of government. When a policy formulated by a previous term will usually be implemented by the successive term. So the money will be reserved in the budget. Now, the first phase will see disbursement in April, and the appropriation bill would not have been passed by that. We have to answer questions in special FC and other procedures to go through. So in March, we'll have to vote on account bill, and will include the $30 billion required for phase one. Will make it very clear to legislators that when the vote on account is passed, then we can have disbursement in April for phase one. So when the motion is passed, we have money to carry out phase one. And the appropriation bill will be passed by LegCo in May. By then, we will have sufficient resources to carry out phase two. You said that the epidemic is serious now, and whether disbursement of the voucher would not be able to achieve its desired effect. Yes, the epidemic is serious, but at the same time, we see that starting from the middle of February, the presidency has given instructions and guidance to the Hong Kong SAR, and the central government has also given us full support. And the different provinces and municipalities have selflessly helped us by giving us supplies and also help us to build isolation facilities. So we hope that within 1 or 2 months, we can put the epidemic under control. We want to disperse vouchers to the public earlier, because many people in the food and beverage and retail sectors have been greatly affected. So we would want money to go to our people earlier. If the epidemic is still with us, I'm sure people are willing to comply with the social distancing measures. Still, there are a lot of things to spend on. So the vouchers should come in useful. As for immigration, our immigration department do not maintain statistics on so-called immigration. People who have left Hong Kong may go overseas to work, to study, for sightseeing, and also to visit relatives. So when people leave Hong Kong, they do not have to declare to the Hong Kong SAR government whether they are emigrating or it's just a temporary absence from Hong Kong. So we have added this requirement on the date of announcement, and we count back 2 years at least. They were in Hong Kong for 1 day. So the number of registrants last year, according to the Immigration Department, there were about 7 million people who are eligible, and 3.6 million turn out to register. So we believe we have been gatekeeping to a certain extent.
Last question. At the back, please. Orange News. Now, will the disbursement of the consumption voucher scheme be a regular feature? And how much will this be stimulating the economy? And how much consumption level will this bring about in the market? Well, this is the second year that we are doing this. We cannot see this as a regular matter. When the consumption voucher scheme was launched last year, from May, the pandemic was under control, and we had the Olympics. People were out and about a lot, and the sentiments were pretty good. Now, with the consumption voucher scheme, the economy was pretty good, and people were really pleased about the situation. We were pretty encouraged by what happened. Last year, when we rolled that out, the stimulus was expected to be something like 2.7%. And our economists conducted some assessment, and there were some academics. According to CHK's academic research, the consumption voucher scheme last year covered $5,000, and people actually spend 80% or 110% on top of the $5,000. In other words, that they spend $5,000 more on top of the consumption vouchers. So the effect was pretty good this year with $10,000. It would be 1.7% in terms of stimulus. Last year was 0.7%. So it all depends on the COVID situation. If the pandemic is under control and people are going back to the normal life, I'm sure that this would be pretty good to the economy. This year, the situation can be more complicated. Other than the local domestic situation, the external situation is also pretty uncertain. Other than the interest rate hikes from the US, we're witnessing the warfare between Russia and Ukraine. Will this have any particular bearing on the external market? Now, we are monitoring the situation. Now, where we can try our best, we will domestically. That's it for today. Thank you all very much. Thank you.